Have you ever imagined what happens when the world's biggest superstars are stripped of fame, luxury, and cheering crowds left only with steel discipline, heavy rifles, and the cold morning air of military life? Tonight, we're opening a door that fans were never supposed to see. A world where BTS isn't judged by vocals, dance, or visuals, but by grit, endurance, focus, and pure survival instincts. And trust me, the results are nothing like what you expect. Because behind those silent barracks and early morning roll calls, something unbelievable happened. Each member revealed a side of himself that even years on stage could never show. The quiet ones surprised instructors. The strong ones struggled in unexpected areas. The soft-spoken ones turned out sharper, tougher, more explosive than anyone predicted. And the biggest shock? The one who took the #1 spot didn't just pass. He shattered expectations so brutally that his instructors had to double-check his score. This is more than a ranking. This is a rare look into who they are when the cameras are off, when the battlefield replaces the stage, and when all that matters is heart, discipline, and raw human strength. So, the question is, are you ready to see a version of BTS that only the military has witnessed? A version shaped by sweat, dirt, fear, laughter, and breakthroughs that change them forever? Because once we begin this countdown, there's no going back. Number 7. The Unexpected Survivor. Jin's name landing at the bottom of this ranking might make some people blink twice, but once you hear the full story, you'll realize his placement isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually a testament to how much he fought through. From the moment Jin entered training camp, instructors instantly recognized something unique about him. He wasn't the fastest, he wasn't the strongest, and he wasn't the most technically sharp at first, but he had one trait that no one could ignore: unshakable endurance. Not the flashy kind, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet, persistent, slow-burning endurance that keeps a person moving long after everyone else has hit their limit. That's why evaluating him was surprisingly difficult. His score of 80 doesn't tell the emotional truth behind his military journey. It doesn't reveal how he adapted from idle life, late-night studio sessions, world tours, luxurious accommodations to a world where the mattress is thin, the mornings are brutally early, and the rules leave zero room for error. You'd think someone used to comfort would crumble in a place where even a tiny mistake earns you push-ups or penalty drills. But Jin didn't crumble, he adjusted. And the way he adjusted stunned his batchmates. Remember, Jin entered military service as the eldest member of BTS, carrying not only the weight of expectations, but also the weight of being a young figure, even inside a system where rank resets everything. One instructor reportedly observed that he arrived without the arrogance or defensiveness celebrities sometimes bring. Instead, he acted like a rookie desperate to learn everything from scratch, and that mindset became his biggest weapon. His shooting scores weren't the highest at first, but the way he practiced slow, methodical, repeating his breathing techniques until they became second nature showed a level of discipline that couldn't be captured by a single number. Even his physical training told a bigger story. While some recruits exploded with power at the start and then burned out halfway, Jin was the type who started at a moderate pace and somehow kept going and going and going. He wasn't the kind of soldier who made people gasp in the first minute, but he was the one they quietly admired in the last minute, still pushing through the pain when others had already collapsed. And maybe that's the most Jin thing ever. People see his pretty face, his jokes, his worldwide handsome persona, and they forget that he's built from long years of quietly enduring the impossible, from constant traveling to mental pressure to physical exhaustion. So when the military threw challenges at him, obstacle courses, endurance runs, freezing morning formations, his body might have been shocked, but his spirit wasn't. He had lived through worse. In silence, with a smile. The emotional core of his journey lies in how he handled weakness, not strength. There's something incredibly human about watching someone who isn't naturally gifted in military skills slowly climb their way up with consistency and heart. You could say his training arc resembled a slow burn drama, not explosive, not dramatic, but powerful once you understood the details. For example, during night drills, when recruits had to march long distances carrying heavy gear, Jin wasn't the fastest up front, but he was the one quietly checking on teammates, making sure no one fell behind. One soldier later mentioned that Jin always walked in the middle, not because he couldn't lead or keep up, but because he chose the position where he could help the most people. That leadership style, the quiet, nurturing, selfless kind, earned respect in ways that scores simply couldn't represent. Even in tactical teamwork exercises, he wasn't the loud commander type, but he was the stabilizer, the one who calmed others down when tension rose. When a teammate fumbled instructions or panicked under pressure, Jin would be the first to steady them with a calm voice, a quick strategy, or a reassuring glance. That's why many in his division said they didn't see Jin as the weak one. They saw him as the reliable one, the soldier whose presence helped everyone else function better. His discipline was also surprisingly sharp in unexpected areas. He had impeccable uniform management, spotless barrack setup, and near-perfect adherence to schedule. Things that many younger recruits overlooked, Jin executed flawlessly. Why? Because years of idle life had trained him to treat every detail as important, every second as valuable, and every mistake as something he could fix by doing better next time. And though he finished with the lowest score among BTS, the margin wasn't huge and his growth curve was one of the strongest. Instructors reportedly noted that if training had been extended by a few more weeks, Jin might have climbed 2 or even 3 ranks higher. But rankings aside, his true victory lies in something deeper. Jin proved that consistency matters as much as talent. That being the slowest at the start doesn't mean being the weakest in the end. And that sometimes, the most inspiring soldier isn't the one who scores the highest, but the one who refuses to quit even when everything gets hard. That's why number 7 doesn't feel like last place. It feels like the beginning of a story that will only get stronger as the countdown continues. Number 6. The Quiet Fighter. Jimin landing in 6th place with a score of 82 might look surprising at first glance, but the story behind that number is actually one of the most emotional, inspiring, and quietly powerful arcs in the entire BTS military journey. Because Jimin wasn't just battling physical tests, he was battling his own expectations, his perfectionism, and the weight of being one of Korea's most celebrated performers entering a world where fame doesn't matter and softness isn't an option. From the very first day of training, instructors noticed something unmistakable about him. Jimin is gentle, warm, and deeply empathetic traits that don't immediately sound military, yet became both his greatest challenge and eventually, his greatest strength. While some recruits walked in with confidence or raw strength, Jimin walked in with a different kind of intensity, the kind that lived inside his expression, his eyes always watching, analyzing, calculating. He was never the loudest, never the most explosive, but always the one who tried the hardest, even when his body shook from exhaustion. And that's the heart of his story. The physical tests were undeniably difficult for him at first. Jimin isn't naturally the biggest or the strongest in the group. Years of dance training sculpted him into someone agile, flexible, and precise, not necessarily someone built for carrying heavy equipment or long-distance ruck marches. But instead of breaking under the pressure, he leaned into what he does best: discipline, control, and a mindset that refuses to accept failure. His shooting drills were a fascinating example. At the start, his aim was slightly shaky, something instructors chalked up to tension. But once he applied his dancer's breathing, controlled inhales, steady exhales, the same technique he uses before a high-note run or a dangerous choreography flip, everything shifted. Suddenly, his accuracy tightened, his timing steadied, and his posture locked into place. It was as if he translated years of stage discipline directly into combat technique, and the instructors took notice. His physical stamina struggled during the early long-distance runs. Jimin is explosive in short bursts. Give him a 30-second dance sequence and he'll outshine anyone. But endurance? The kind of soul-crushing, leg-burning, oxygen-stealing endurance needed for military tests? That was different. There were moments he fell behind, moments he placed near the bottom during timed drills, moments he bent over with heavy breaths while others kept moving. But what stood out wasn't how many times he slowed down, it was the fact that he never stopped moving forward. Even when his steps got smaller, even when the cold air cut through his lungs, even when sweat stung his eyes, Jimin refused to quit, and recruits noticed. He always finishes, no matter what. One soldier from his batch reportedly said, "He might struggle, but he never asks for a break. He never complains. He just keeps going." That kind of spirit, the quiet perseverance that doesn't brag or shine but endures those qualities, made him deeply respected inside camp. The emotional layer of his journey came from how much he cared about the people around him. Unlike some recruits who focus solely on their own performance, Jimin constantly worried about others, whether they were cold, whether they needed help, whether they were okay during tough drills. This empathy was both a blessing and a burden. On one hand, it slowed him down. He sometimes hesitated during tactical movements because he kept checking the people next to him. On the other hand, it made him the emotional backbone of his squad. When morale dipped, Jimin lifted it. When someone broke down during nighttime drills, he offered encouragement. When pressure made recruits snap at each other, he became the quiet mediator who brought calm back into the group. One instructor said something that perfectly encapsulated his presence. Jimin doesn't lead from the front or the back. He leads from the heart. Inside the barracks, he became the warmth everyone gravitated toward, the one who listened, the one who diffused tension with a soft laugh or a simple, "You did well today." The one who somehow made a freezing, exhausting, rule-heavy environment feel a little more human. And that humanity mattered. Because military life, more than anything, tests your emotional resilience. It strips you down to your core and asks, who are you when you're tired? Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you when everything hurts? Jimin, in those moments, showed that strength isn't always loud or aggressive. Sometimes strength is quiet, gentle, and full of heart. His combat strategy tests also revealed something interesting. He has an incredible sense of spatial awareness. Years of choreography made him instinctively understand spacing, timing, and movement. So in tactical room-clearing drills, his steps were smooth, controlled, almost dancer-like. He wasn't the fastest to enter a room, but he was one of the most precise in his movements, taking corners with surprising steadiness. Instructors said his technique looked like someone who respected the flow of the exercise deeply, not someone rushing for a score. And that's why his ranking is so meaningful. Jimin's score of 82 isn't a reflection of weakness, it's a reflection of transformation. A reflection of someone who came in with traits people might dismiss as soft, yet turned them into a kind of unbreakable, empathetic resilience that strengthened everyone around him. Sixth place isn't a loss. It's a testament to how he survived, adapted, grew, and inspired. Because in the military, not everyone becomes the strongest, not everyone becomes the fastest. But some become the heart of their unit, and that's exactly who Jimin became. If you're ready to keep going, number 5, the strategic genius in disguise. Suga scoring 85 and landing at number 5 is exactly the kind of twist that makes this entire ranking so fascinating. Because if you judged him purely from stage presence, calm, reserved, sometimes distant, always observing rather than jumping in, you'd never expect him to shine in the environment of military training. But that's the thing about Suga. The less you expect from him, the more he quietly proves you wrong. From the moment he stepped into the base, instructors described him as the recruit with the sharpest mind, someone who didn't react quickly but thought quickly. And in the army, thinking fast strategically, instinctively, practically can matter just as much as physical force. His military journey didn't explode with dramatic scenes or heroic shouts. It unfolded like a slowly building documentary. The type where the camera follows a lone figure in the background until, suddenly, you realize he's the one everyone's been watching without even noticing. At first, his physical performance seemed modest. Suga isn't the most athletic, and he never pretended to be. He's had injuries, surgeries, and years of physical strain from performing, which meant his body needed more time to adapt. During early drills, he paced himself carefully. He didn't sprint at full speed, didn't push recklessly, didn't pretend to be superhuman. Instead, he treated each training task like a puzzle, analyzing what he could do, what he should do, and how to do it without wasting energy. And this approach shocked instructors. While many recruits burned out quickly because they tried to dominate every drill, Suga played the long game. He adjusted his movements, figured out the rhythm of each exercise, learned the terrain, memorized the patterns of commands, and slowly but steadily started outperforming recruits who were stronger on day one. That's the thing about him. He survived tougher things than rope climbs or obstacle runs. He survived burnout, chronic pain, emotional exhaustion, sleepless nights, fame pressure, and schedules that would crush the average person. So, military difficulty? It challenged his body, yes, but not his spirit. The shooting range was where Suga truly stunned everyone. Not because he had a flashy, aggressive style, but because he had something extremely rare: stillness. The kind of quiet concentration that comes from years spent producing music alone in a room, crafting every sound with precision, staying calm even when perfection feels impossible. That same stillness helped him become one of the most accurate shooters in his entire unit. He breathed evenly, held the rifle like an extension of his body, and locked into focus so deeply that instructors said they could feel the shift in atmosphere whenever it was his turn. He was calm, almost too calm, and that made him deadly accurate. One instructor wrote in his evaluation that Suga had sniper-level potential, not because of physical prowess, but because of patience, precision, and mental clarity. It's ironic. The man known for rap lines filled with fire and rage became one of the quietest, cleanest shooters in the batch. But that duality is exactly who he is. The emotional turning point of his training came during team-based missions. Suga has always been the observer in BTS, the one who listens before he speaks, the one who looks at the whole situation instead of reacting impulsively. This made him a natural strategist. During tactical simulations, room clearing, formation changes, emergency response drills, he was the one who kept squads organized when chaos broke out. He wasn't barking commands, he wasn't trying to impress. He simply understood what needed to be done, communicated it clearly, and moved with a steady certainty that calmed everyone around him. His squadmates said that when Suga spoke, people listened. Not because he demanded it, but because his voice carried a quiet authority, the kind that comes from someone who genuinely knows what they're talking about. And even though he wasn't the strongest physically, he became the backbone of multiple exercises. His instructors repeatedly noted that he had leadership potential without ego, something incredibly rare in military training. Inside the barracks, he was surprisingly social in a grounded, comforting way. Not loud, not overly expressive, but consistent. He listened to others' worries, offered advice, helped younger recruits process stress, and sometimes even used humor to ease tension. One recruit later shared that Suga had a way of making everything feel less overwhelming, like he could turn pressure into something manageable just by explaining it more clearly. That emotional intelligence became one of his secret strengths. He didn't just survive military life, he stabilized it for others. And that's why his ranking at number 5 isn't about being middle of the pack. It's about transformation. It's about discovering that someone who has always felt like the quiet shadow of the group could suddenly become the brain of the battlefield. His 85 shows balance strong enough physically, exceptional mentally, quietly reliable emotionally. It shows that while he didn't dominate every test, he excelled in everything that required patience, precision, and calm under pressure. And in the military, those qualities can matter even more than brute strength. Suga didn't shout, he didn't posture. He didn't try to be the hero, but he became the soldier who reminded everyone that quiet people often carry the sharpest instincts. And sometimes, the calmest person in the room is the one you'd trust the most when things get dangerous. Number 4, the commander of calm chaos. RM securing a score of 86 and landing at number 4 feels almost poetic. The leader of BTS stepping into the military and naturally becoming a leader once again, but this time stripped of rank, title, and fame. What makes his story so remarkable isn't that he performed well, we all expected that. It's how he performed. Because the military didn't just reveal his intelligence, it revealed an entirely new layer beneath it: resilience, instinct, and an uncanny ability to bring order to chaos even when he himself was struggling. From day one, the instructors noticed something that set RM apart. Other recruits were nervous, stiff, overly focused on doing everything perfectly. RM? He was alert, steady, and strangely relaxed, like someone who understood that the only way to survive a strict environment is not to fight it, but to flow with it. His tall posture, serious gaze, and calm demeanor made him look like a soldier even before he put on the uniform. But what really shocked instructors was how fast he adapted to the system. RM didn't resist rules. He embraced them. He didn't question the routine. He synced with it. When commands echoed across the training field, he moved with sharp precision, not because he was trying to impress anyone, but because he listened with true focus, dissecting instructions the way he dissects lyrics, breaking them down, understanding them deeply, executing them with intent. His physical tests were above average, but the real power he showed wasn't raw strength, it was consistency. RM is not the fastest runner, but his pacing never breaks. Not the most flexible, but his posture is immaculate. Not the most explosive, but his stamina is frighteningly stable. He is the definition of a soldier who rarely peaks but never crashes, and that level of stability is rare, especially in an environment where recruits often collapse under pressure, rush through drills, or crumble emotionally. RM, however, has lived through global tours, life or death pressure on stage, crushing expectations, sleepless nights, controversies, and leadership responsibilities only few can carry. Compared to the weight of leading BTS for a decade, the military felt like a new but manageable challenge. His instructors said his discipline seemed pre-trained, like a system installed long before he walked into the base. Shooting practice revealed something fascinating about him. RM didn't have the natural accuracy of Jungkook or the stillness of Suga, but he had something neither of them had: adaptability. During his first rounds, his shots were slightly off-center. Instead of blaming the gun, the stance, or the wind, he calmly asked for corrections. He adjusted his elbow, modified his breathing, stabilized his shoulders, and within a few attempts, his shooting improved at a speed that made instructors raise their eyebrows. He wasn't the best shooter, but he was the fastest learner in the room, and that is a weapon in itself. But where he truly shined, where RM became RM, was in teamwork. Every time the training turned chaotic, every time orders clashed, every time recruits got confused about formations or tactics, something happened instinctively. They looked at him. RM didn't ask to lead, but he ended up leading anyway. Not by shouting commands like a drill sergeant, not by acting superior or overconfident, but by being the one who kept his mind clear when others panicked. During tactical communication drills, when many recruits struggled to relay information clearly, RM was precise. His voice didn't tremble. His sentences were sharp. His tone held confidence without arrogance. He became the communicator everyone relied on. It reminded many soldiers of what he's been doing for years, guiding a global group, translating emotions, turning confusion into clarity. Inside the barracks, RM's presence was like a grounding force. He wasn't the loud clown or the dramatic storyteller. He was the quiet philosopher, the guy who made everyone feel safe even with just a nod or a short conversation during late-night cleaning duty. One recruit in his squad shared that RM had a habit of offering short, thoughtful lines of encouragement, not cheesy, not dramatic, just enough to help someone breathe easier. He listens first, the soldier said. Most people talk. He listens. And that, in the military, is leadership at its finest. He balanced humor and seriousness so naturally that even instructors ended up liking him more than they expected. There were moments where RM struggled physically, his knees acting up, his long stride awkward on certain terrains, his muscles tightening during long drills. But he pushed through with a level of mental strength that not many possess. He didn't complain, didn't show frustration, didn't let fatigue break his composure. Even when he was exhausted, he encouraged others. When he was unsure, he asked questions instead of pretending he knew. When he made mistakes, he corrected them instead of defending them. This humility, combined with intelligence, formed the perfect soldier's mindset. And that's why his score of 86 is so meaningful. It reflects not just performance, but character. RM didn't dominate every test, but he excelled at everything that required balance: communication, quick thinking, emotional stability, and leadership without ego. He became the soldier instructors trusted, recruits respected, and teams depended on. Not because he was the strongest, but because he was the most reliable. Number 4 suits him perfectly. Because the top 3 may have outperformed him physically, but none of them had the calm, grounding, quietly powerful presence that RM carried into every corner of the military camp. If you're ready, number 3, the relentless flame of discipline. Jhope earning a score of 88 and landing at number 3 is one of the most satisfying, energizing, and honestly, legendary placements in this entire ranking. Because if there's one member who transformed military life into a battlefield of pure willpower and positivity, it was him. Jhope didn't just survive the camp, he lit it up with a kind of discipline and spirit that instructors still talk about. Even before training started, recruits noticed something different in him. Not loud, not overly cheerful, not performing, but focused. Razor sharp, as if he walked into the military, not as Jhope from BTS, but as Jung Ho-seok, a man who came to prove something to himself. And from day one, he treated every drill, command, and punishment with the same energy he brings to choreography. Full commitment, zero shortcuts, zero hesitation. The instructors immediately noticed that he was the most physically prepared recruit in his unit. His body responded to training like it had been waiting for this environment. Disciplined, flexible, explosive, and extremely coordinated. When others struggled with basic form, Jhope mastered it. When others tried to find their rhythm, Jhope already had one. When others pushed for speed, Jhope pushed for precision. The military thrives on discipline. And discipline is exactly what built him as an artist. His warm-up stretches looked like dance rehearsals. His running posture was nearly perfect. His energy was clean, controlled, and unbreakable. But the real shock came when the physical intensity escalated. Rope climbing? He reached the top faster than recruits half his age. Endurance runs? He wasn't the fastest, but he never dropped pace, never broke form, never lost breath control. Obstacle courses? He moved like someone born with instinctual awareness of his body sliding under barriers, vaulting over walls, landing soft but fast, as if his muscles were communicating with the ground. He didn't look like someone trying to pass a test. He looked like someone training for war, but it wasn't just his physical ability, it was the way he carried himself. Jhope is known among fans as the group's sunshine, the bright, playful energy that keeps the team grounded. But in the military, that sunshine didn't make him soft, it made him unstoppable. He encouraged others, yes, but not with fake positivity. He lifted morale by showing what real effort looks like. When someone struggled, he didn't just say, "You can do it." He trained with them, matched their pace, showed them how to breathe better, how to use their momentum, how to distribute their weight. In a world where recruits often get competitive, Jhope got collaborative. He became the glue, the motivator, the silent engine that kept others from breaking. One recruit shared, "He wasn't the loudest, but whenever he moved, we moved better." His effort changed the atmosphere. Shooting drills revealed another side of him, the calm one. Jhope has always been expressive, energetic, sometimes chaotic in the best way. But with a rifle in his hands, he became steady, controlled, shockingly serious. His stance surprised instructors. His breathing was perfect. His aim wasn't the best, but his concentration was so intense that instructors said he held focus longer than almost anyone else. That discipline became his greatest weapon. During tactical simulations, he transformed again. Years of dance gave him agility and spatial awareness. Years of performing gave him rhythm. Years of leading dance rehearsals gave him timing. In room-clearing drills, he moved with fluid precision, his steps light but fast, his transitions sharp, his instincts reacting milliseconds ahead. He didn't just follow formations, he predicted them. When the squad hesitated, Jhope adjusted. When someone fell behind, he compensated by shifting position. He was the recruit instructors trusted to keep the line unbroken. His squadmates said he had this uncanny ability to maintain morale, discipline, and formation all at once, a trait that made him feel almost like an unofficial assistant instructor. Inside the barracks, he was exactly what you'd expect. Reliable, clean, orderly, and surprisingly strict with himself. He made his bed perfectly, organized his locker like a catalog photo, cleaned faster than most recruits but never rushed. His discipline wasn't performance, it was habit. Years of training rooms, synchronized rehearsals, tight schedules, and performance pressure had built him into a machine of order, and yet he never came off as intimidating. He was warm, just in a quieter, more mature way. Instead of jokes, he offered presence. Instead of loud hype, he offered stability. People gravitated toward him because he made the environment feel purposeful, not miserable. That's the thing about Jhope. Everyone sees the dancer, the sunshine, the energy. But the military revealed the backbone beneath all of that, the warrior who has been training his entire life without realizing it. His score of 88 reflects excellence across all areas: physical strength, mental discipline, emotional resilience, teamwork, adaptability. But what pushed him into the top 3 wasn't just performance. It was the fact that he raised the standard for everyone else. When he trained harder, they trained harder. When he moved cleaner, they moved cleaner. When he carried the weight of the drill, the whole squad felt lighter. Jhope didn't come to the military to shine. He came to serve. And in doing so, he shined anyway, quietly, fiercely, relentlessly. Number 2 volts, the quiet storm of precision. When we arrive at the second position on this list, we're no longer talking about someone who's simply good at everything. We're diving into the journey of a man whose mental qualities often go unnoticed, yet are always deeply felt. Taehyung. A score of 90 isn't just a number, it's a reflection of the way he works, thinks, and moves, with a rhythm entirely different from anyone else. When Taehyung entered the military, many wondered, would he remain that mysterious, serene figure, or would a new side of him emerge in such a demanding environment? The answer, it turns out, is both, and that's what makes his military journey so compelling to watch. Taehyung has always been someone who is deeply perceptive of his surroundings, other people's emotions, and the demands of any situation. But behind that calm persona lies an extraordinary focus. When given an instruction, he never treats it as just a task. He studies the pattern behind it, understands the meaning of every motion, and absorbs it into his body as if it were part of the natural rhythm of his life. Several instructors described him as the silent observer, someone who rarely speaks, but the moment he moves, everyone knows he has been paying attention since the very beginning. And that is exactly what pushed his score so high. He isn't the type of soldier who shouts the loudest information, nor the one who charges forward the fastest. He's the soldier who is consistent, steady, accurate, and almost never makes a technical mistake. There's an interesting anecdote from his shooting training. Taehyung wasn't the best marksman in his batch, but he was one of the most stable. His shots consistently landed in a similar pattern, as if he were reading the wind and the rhythm of his own, breathing in a way only someone who spent a lifetime listening to the small, quiet things could. This trait made him excel in drills that required deep concentration, terrain orientation, night navigation, and stealth movement. His fellow trainees often said Taehyung was like a slow-motion camera. He moved gently, but carried an intensity that drew attention without him ever trying. The emotional reflection of his military journey is just as unique. He's the type who absorbs the atmosphere rather than imposing himself on it. At night, when other soldiers joked around or fell asleep from exhaustion, Taehyung was often seen sitting quietly with his earphones in his hands, not wearing them, just holding them, as if music lived in his mind, and the world continued turning at the tempo he chose. That calmness, surprisingly, became a huge advantage in both physical and mental training. When mid-distance running made many trainees lose focus, Taehyung stayed steady. When group tactical drills demanded communication without chaos, Taehyung became the quiet center that kept his team from falling apart. Even his commander once said, he doesn't dominate the room, he stabilizes it. And that is the essence of Taehyung in the military, a strength that doesn't explode outward, but echoes silently. Many fans were shocked when they heard Taehyung scored as high as 90. But for those who understand his deeper nature, the score is simply a confirmation that everything we've seen in him, his calmness, depth, focus, isn't just a stage persona, it's a part of his body and soul. In the end, Taehyung stands in second place, not because he tries to be the best, but because he shows up fully in every process he goes through. He doesn't chase falling stars. He walks toward them slowly, and somehow it's the stars that end up coming to him. Number 1. Jungkook, the unstoppable military prodigy. And finally, we arrive at the peak of this entire list. The position everyone has been waiting for from the very beginning. The one who not only earned the highest score, 94 points, but also became the name whispered by instructors, seniors, and fellow trainees alike. Jungkook, the golden maknae, the all-rounder. But in the military, he is no longer the BTS idol. He is no longer the vocal king, the stage monster, or the dance powerhouse. Here, he is simply Jeon Jungkook, a young soldier who shows up with laser-sharp focus, uncompromising dedication, and a competitive instinct that borders on unreal. And because he stripped away every layer of global stardom, he transformed into something even stronger, a soldier who truly understands discipline, precision, and honor. From the very first day of training, Jungkook made instructors exchange that familiar glance, the one that silently says, "Wait, who is this kid?" Not because he was loud, not because he tried to stand out, but because the way he worked felt like watching a machine programmed to master anything in record time. During physical training, others needed 2 weeks to stabilize their stamina. Jungkook needed only 2 days. In shooting drills, where other trainees struggled to adjust their grip, Jungkook found the perfect stability after just observing for a moment. In group tactical exercises, he didn't just follow instructions, he understood the intent behind them, read the gaps, and filled them before anyone told him to. A seasoned officer who had trained dozens of batches once said, "He adapts unnaturally fast. Whatever you give him, he finds the best version of it." To them, it felt like watching someone evolve in real time. One of the most unforgettable stories from his night training cemented his reputation instantly. During a pitch-dark navigation mission, where soldiers must move without lights and rely solely on intuition, Jungkook not only reached the endpoint faster, he did it while guiding two teammates who were close to getting lost, keeping them in formation the entire time. Not in a dramatic, heroic movie way, but efficiently, quietly, and almost invisibly. When his team reached the final marker, the commander stared at him for a moment before saying, "You are built for this." But perhaps the most fascinating part of Jungkook isn't his physical ability, nor his speed, nor his cutting precision, it's his mentality. In every single training session, he had one consistent habit. He was never the first to speak, but always the first to try. No unnecessary comments, no excuses. Just steady, relentless action. Fellow trainees often said Jungkook carried a silent pressure, a presence that made everyone around him want to do better simply by watching how seriously he took everything. And, of course, the harsh environment of military life revealed a new side of Jungkook. More grounded, more mature, more centered. He was no longer the energetic young man overflowing with adrenaline. He became someone who carried responsibility with calm conviction. At night, when exhausted trainees collapsed into their bunks, Jungkook wasn't the type to fall asleep right away. He often sat quietly for a moment, staring at the ceiling, as if replaying the day's training in his mind, as if he refused to rest until he had fully understood every mistake and every improvement. Some of his peers even said he was like a weapon constantly calibrating itself. But don't misunderstand, despite his machine-like focus, Jungkook never lost his empathy. When a trainee nearly gave up from a minor injury, Jungkook was the one who discreetly helped him without making it a big deal. When someone was stressed or losing motivation, Jungkook was the one who offered a simple gesture, a pat on the shoulder, a small smile that seemed to say, "You can do this." And maybe that's the very reason he stands at the top of this ranking. Not just because of his physical power, not just because of his insane stamina, not just because of his consistency or tactical instincts, but because he carries a rare balance, strength, and heart in equal measure. In the military, they didn't see him as a global superstar. They saw him as someone who gives 100% without hesitation. And that 94-point score is simply a small number trying to summarize a very big presence. Jungkook stands at number 1 not because he seeks praise, but because he has never learned how to give anything less than his all. The world may see him as a star, but the military saw him as a true soldier. And for those who witnessed his service up close, one sentence kept coming back again and again: he was born to excel, even here.